So I am sure that accountability, punitive or preemptive, didn't exactly ring your chimes this morning, but I hope that you'll bear with me, because accountability used appropriately can be a really powerful tool for our businesses. I'm going to ask that you think about accountability a little bit differently from the way we tend to think of it. So when somebody says to you as a business owner, or in maybe former lives, who's accountable? Usually that's followed with something not very complimentary. So people are running for cover, and that's where this whole idea of punitive comes in. What I suggest to you today is that if accountability used as a systematic approach to planning and executing on the things necessary to get the desired results is the best tool you'll ever have. So think of it far more as a preemptive tool than as a way to blame, or frankly, as a way to react when things go poorly. So it doesn't sound all that complicated, do you think? A systematic approach to planning and executing on the things necessary for the desired results. But somehow, we always struggle with it, one way or the other. So the classic example that I will share with you is this time of year, all the resolutions that people make, this issue of, I'm going to get healthier, typically by losing weight. You know, all due respect, Dr. Dan, it's not brain surgery. We know what it takes, right? You need to eat healthier, maybe drink a little less alcohol, commit to exercising, maybe exercise a little bit more, get a buddy or a trainer or a mentor to help with the support, and celebrate the successes. And that is a system of accountability. Yet somehow we struggle with following that system. Think about this. Not only do we struggle with it, but we pay lots of money to buy these systems. Right? I mean, think about this. We know what to do, yet we'll go buy a system and then not follow it. So the healthcare industry, the weight loss industry, in 2014 was valued at about $60 billion. $60 billion. Now, if you carve out just the top 10 companies that focus truly on weight loss systems, and I'm not talking about the diet drinks and those sorts of things, but like Nutrisystem and Weight Watchers and those types of system companies, their net revenue is approximately $2.8 billion annually. Now, why is it that we would pay for these systems and then not follow them? We're making those people very rich. So the point here is that people are typically unwilling to adapt the behaviors that are necessary to have sustained success as their new standard, that mindset that it takes to change the way we eat, to commit to truly exercising, and to do the things that we know we need to do. So the parallel in this is, how do we manage and grow our own businesses? Do we have that mindset to adapt the behaviors that it takes to be successful, to manage our businesses in a way that they can truly grow and succeed? So if you think about establishing an accountability system, what it really is about is the way we conduct our businesses. It's the way we act. It's the approach that we take to every decision that we make, to every process that we establish. So listen to this. In corporate America, it's estimated that billions of dollars are lost every year due to a lack of systemic accountability, because what it creates is employee theft, returns, rework, aggravation within the organization, misunderstandings, and most importantly to us, the loss or the reduction of business by formerly loyal customers who find themselves now with inferior product and less than satisfactory customer service. So frankly, big companies struggle when they lose a customer. Small businesses, it can be devastating to our businesses and very costly to recover if we can recover. So the point here is to think about using a system of accountability that helps to minimize the issues that can occur, maybe even avoid the issues that occur, by being proactive, by establishing a systematic approach to planning and executing on the things that are necessary to get the desired result. So today, we're not going to talk about the blame game. We're not going to talk about who did what and why they did it or didn't do it. What we're going to focus on is that proactive approach, that preemptive tool, a system of behaviors that will help avoid the very issues that are distracting from getting done what you need to get done. Because if you follow this system, your team, if you have a team, and we all really do have a team, even if they're not our employees, your partners and your customers will know exactly what it is you plan to do, when, and by whom. And that's really pretty critical to everything you need to do, everything we need to do. So, one of the things that I have found over time is that definitions can matter. And we won't spend a lot of time on the different definitions of accountability, but I've selected 3 because they embody most of the principles that you'll see in the 6 steps to this process for accountability. And mostly what I want you to think about here is that accountability is about the way we act, accepting responsibility, and then doing something about that responsibility in a positive way. This is considered to be a business definition of accountability by some author that I read long ago. Couldn't have been very impressive because I can't tell you who the author was. Personal accountability, very similarly, you'll see that it's about accepting ownership, taking on ownership of situations that we're involved in. Again, it's about a behavior. What I would say to you is when you think about these things, when people say, I accept responsibility, if they don't follow afterward with, and here's what I'm going to do differently, they're not really accepting responsibility. They're saying words that you want to hear in hopes that you'll move on to something else. Politicians are famous for it. I accept responsibility. Well, that's good. Are you going to change your behavior? Not very often. So I like the Oz definition best because at the core of the author's message, what they're talking about here is accepting ownership for the organization's success and goals, and for taking responsibility for their individual performance and team performance. And when people get invested in that way, what happens is that their work ethics improve and the quality of their work will improve. And those are both important aspects to getting done what you need to get done, for being successful. So the common themes here are pretty obvious. So you can use whatever definition you like, and you maybe have your own definition of accountability. But the point is that you're going to see these in these steps that we're going to talk about next. So the first one is about clear communications, knowing exactly what it is you want to say and saying it clearly. And not only saying it clearly, but thinking in terms of an example. So if your goal is $1 million in sales in the first 12 months of the year, at the end of a year, I'll get it out, the end of a year, then it's important for you to then back into what's it going to take to accomplish that. If you leave that target out there at just that, it's very difficult to manage how well you're doing. So breaking it into time increments and being very specific about what's to be accomplished along the way gives you the opportunity to build on each of those accomplishments, and to recalibrate if you get off course, and frankly, to celebrate when you hit the major milestones, because that's an important aspect here as well. So, alignment. You need to be sure that individual and team targets are in line with the organizational goals and values and value set. Doesn't that sound very much corporate-like? Yes. Yeah. So here's what it really means from my perspective. What it really means is make sure that the way you're spending your time is contributing to the success of your organization. And as importantly, making sure that the way the people that are working with you spend their time are contributing to the success of the organization. It isn't really more complicated than that. Empower people to succeed. Provide the time, the tools, and the resources for people to be able to do what they need to do. And frankly, that applies to you as well. Invest in yourselves. And I congratulate people who got up this morning, who didn't want to get out in the cold, didn't want to shovel those driveways, and really didn't want to be on the roads with all those other crazy drivers, to come here to make an investment in yourselves, because that's what this is all about. Recognition. So I'm not talking here about every time someone takes a breath giving them an attaboy. That just simply minimizes the benefit. What I'm talking about is recognizing when there are major milestones that have been hit, when people go above and beyond the call. And frankly, that applies to ourselves too. You know, when you get something done that's really been a struggle, treat yourself, because you want to reinforce that behavior, right? Plus, you need to feel good about things. Ask for feedback. This, I think, is one of the hardest things to do. Ask customers for feedback way before you think something might be wrong. Ask them how it's going. Ask employees for feedback, trusted partners. But let me say to you, you need to set the stage for people to be candid with you, because this is not the time to be defensive. If you don't want the feedback, and if you don't plan on doing anything about it, don't ask for it. But you're losing out on some really valuable information if you don't. And take action. So when you get that feedback, hopefully that you've done that, you want to take action on it. As importantly, if things start to go awry, you want to take corrective action. Don't confuse that with progressive discipline. That's a whole other presentation, and that's a real negative approach to things. This is about making sure that you stay the course and that each step that you take is contributing to the success, right? So this is truly about putting accountability at the front end of everything that you do, following a process, using a system. So make accountability your style, make it our style. What I think about this is that it's important for us to be vigilant about the way we behave and about the way we conduct our businesses. And we need to be willing to hold ourselves to a standard that improves the performance of our organization, and we need to have the fortitude to be willing to be held accountable by others, customers, employees, partners, whoever's important to you, family maybe. And in that process, we need to focus relentlessly on building relationships. You heard some examples this morning of the value of the relationships that have occurred here. They're really important. So making preemptive accountability a tool that you use on a regular basis helps you to keep your word. Remember that people will deal with us based on what they think about us, what they believe we are, not what we want them to think about us. So our future presentations in February and in March are going to build on this concept of accountability and the importance of how it allows us to build trust and therefore build effective teams. Some resources, some of the resources that I use to think through a little bit about the key messages here. The Oz principle, a pretty important one, and one that we use here, we've used here a great deal. So I hope that if you gain nothing else from this, that this really catchy little phrase, a systematic approach to planning and executing on what's important in order to accomplish the desired results, will just roll off your tongues. So before I summarize, what questions do you have for me? I will repeat the questions, yes. Dale.
Yeah, not so much a question, but a comment to your point about accountability and how the lack of it, how devastating the lack of it can be. I'm reading the book, The Big Short.
Yes.
The subprime book. There was a lack of accountability in the loan origination, in the loan packaging, selling them, the rating agencies, and the Federal Reserve. And nowhere in the process was there any real accountability, and we see what happened there.
Absolutely. If you have not seen the movie The Big Short, I encourage you to do that. The book, I'm sure, is fabulous because the movie obviously is based on the book. I can share with you that from my personal experience that when I have failed, or when my team has failed, invariably, it's because we were not true to following that system. We let something go. We didn't ask good questions. We didn't listen. We didn't follow through. There was always something that went back to not following that system. Always. Steve?
Yeah, and I'm impressed with what you said about accountability being a system, a preemptive tool rather than being used for blaming. But I also think about its power to help people clarify who's responsible for what. And in that clarity, people can be far more productive, can prioritize better. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the question is about the clarity that can come from using an accountability system. Often, where we stumble is that question about who's responsible, who's accountable. And it isn't, people don't go into these situations wanting to fail. But when you don't truly identify who's responsible for what pieces to the puzzle, it's very easy for the situation to occur of, well, I thought you were going to do it. Well, no, I thought you were going to do it. Well, it's your area of responsibility. That's just completely unproductive, and frankly, it's very divisive. So the importance of the clarity of who's responsible for what, by when, is really an important aspect to this. Glenda.
I don't want our audience to miss out, and you have a wonderful handout on the tables that you provided for everyone, which, you probably took some notes while Ann was talking, but this is a wonderful handout to be able to take with you.
Thank you. The handout it outlines the steps, and I'll come back to that in a second. Scott.
So losing weight and getting healthy is easy because you have two metrics, how much you intake and how much you burn off. But like your business, what are some of those metrics that you could take or use to apply in business that aren't 7 things, but maybe 1 or 2 things that you could hold yourself accountable as a leader?
Well, so the question is about what are the 1 or 2 things that you can hold yourself accountable for as the leader. And I will tell you that from, at least I'll speak personally about this, and for me, what I always went back to when things started to go south on me was, how did I behave? What did I do? Where did I miss the boat? Because if people failed, at least from my perspective, that was on me. It started with something that I didn't do correctly. Now, so that to me is one of the first things, is how did I comport myself? Did I demonstrate the right behaviors? And I think the second thing is, we have a tendency to hope things are just going to fix themselves. So rather than dealing with issues quickly, making sure we understand the facts and the circumstances, but dealing and confronting issues quickly, we tend to wait and, well, maybe it'll get better, or we kind of hint at things. People need to have clarity of what the expectations are, and I think when we don't do that, we do them a disservice. So we're out of time for questions. I thank you very much for the attention. Appreciate it very much. So in summary, I think the clearest message that I can give to you, and that I when I look in the mirror, try to give to myself, is that accountability needs to be truly at the front end of everything we do. Using it as a reaction when there's a dissatisfaction or when there's a complaint is at the wrong end of the process. It's very defensive, and it really does not do anything to help build our businesses, and it's not a very effective management tool. So before I close, if you look at the handout that Glenda was referring to, the second page of it provides definitions of the Oz principle terms. And if you look at the very bottom of it, there's a footer. And in that footnote, on some of your documents, it has just the website. And on some of them, it includes the name of the book. For those of you who had that particular piece of paper, we've got a free copy of the Oz Principle book for you. So I'll see you after the meeting. Thank you very much.